My name is Cole Barrett, and I'm 27 years old. They said a city kid like me wouldn't last a week on the ranch, with big dreams, but no clue about hard work or life outside the pavement. I walked into a world full of tough cowboys who didn't believe I belonged. They laughed and doubted, but deep inside, I had a fire they didn't see coming. A stubborn grit ready to prove them all wrong. What happened next changed everything, not just for me, but for everyone who ever underestimated me. From day one, the ranch threw everything at me. Blisters on my hands, freezing mornings, and the constant weight of being the outsider. The cowboy's words echoed in my head. "You won't make it, kid." But quitting was never an option. I was determined to fight back, to show that heart and grit can tame even the wildest challenges. And then came the biggest test of all, the wildest horse on the ranch. A legend no one had ever caught. If you think you know what it takes to survive ranch life, think again. My journey isn't just about wrangling horses. It is about facing every doubt head-on and rising higher than anyone expected. Stick around to see how I caught that wild horse and earned the respect I was told I'd never get. If you want more stories like this, hit subscribe and leave a like, because my ride is just getting started. When I first arrived at the ranch, I was nothing but an outsider. A city kid stepping into a world I barely understood. The wide-open fields, the smell of dust and leather, and the hard faces of seasoned cowboys made it clear I didn't belong. I could feel their eyes watching me, judging every move I made. It was like stepping into a test I hadn't studied for, and every second felt like a challenge to prove I wasn't just another joke. I knew from the start this wasn't going to be easy. The cowboys didn't hide their doubts. They made jokes, whispered behind my back, and gave me the cold shoulder. "What's a kid like you doing here?" they'd ask with smirks. It felt like I was fighting an invisible wall, one built from years of hard-earned respect that I didn't yet have. But their skepticism only fueled my determination. I wasn't here to be their punching bag. I was here to make my mark, no matter what it took. Every morning began before the sun, and every task reminded me how far I was from the life I knew. From fixing fences to feeding the horses, the work was brutal and unforgiving. My hands were raw, my muscles ached, and the exhaustion crept in faster than I expected. But with every ache, I felt something grow inside me. A stubborn refusal to quit. I was learning, struggling, and slowly becoming part of something bigger than myself. What surprised me most was how lonely it could feel, even surrounded by so many people. The ranch was a tight-knit world where everyone had a role, and I was still trying to find mine. I missed the familiar sounds of the city and the comfort of routine. But every day I pushed myself a little harder, reminding myself that growth happens outside the comfort zone. This was my chance to rewrite my story, even if no one believed I could. The toughest part wasn't the physical labor, it was earning respect. Respect on a ranch isn't given. It's earned through sweat, grit, and quiet moments no one sees. I had to prove I wasn't just talk. Every small victory, every task completed without complaint, chipped away at the doubts. Slowly but surely, I was carving out my place, step by step, day by day. I remember one afternoon clearly, the sun beating down, sweat dripping into my eyes, when an older cowboy called me over. His name was Hank, a man known for being tough, but fair. He looked me straight in the eyes and said, "You might just have what it takes, kid." Those words hit me harder than any blow. For the first time, I felt like maybe, just maybe, I was starting to belong. Looking back now, I realized that first week wasn't just about learning ranch work. It was about learning to believe in myself when no one else would. The doubts, the struggles, the loneliness, they all became the fuel for the fire inside me. And little did I know, the real test was still waiting. A wild horse that no one had ever caught, and a chance to prove that I was more than just a city kid with dreams. The ranch was nothing like I imagined. Every day was a battle against exhaustion and pain, pushing me beyond limits I didn't know I had. The sun would rise, and before I could even catch my breath, there was work waiting. Fences to fix, horses to feed, and endless chores that demanded every ounce of energy. My body ached in ways the city never taught me, but quitting wasn't an option. This was my new reality, and I had to conquer it. The hardest part wasn't just the physical strain, it was the mental fight that wore me down. Every mistake felt like a spotlight on my weaknesses, and every failure was magnified by the judgmental eyes around me. I often caught myself wondering if I belonged, if I was fooling myself by trying to survive in a world so different from what I knew. But then, deep inside, a voice kept telling me to hold on, to keep pushing through the pain, because that's where growth lives. Mornings came early and sleep was never enough. The cold mornings seeped through my clothes, numbing my fingers and making every task feel twice as hard. I remember shivering as I tried to saddle a horse, hands trembling but refusing to give up. The physical discomfort was brutal, but it was the feeling of being an outsider that hit hardest. Still, every day I showed up, I was rewriting the story they told about me. A city kid who couldn't hack it. The ranch taught me patience like nothing else. Horses don't respond to anger or frustration. They sense it and run. I had to learn to breathe, to slow down, and to listen. Every chore became a lesson in humility and persistence. I discovered that real strength wasn't in how hard I could hit the ground, but in how many times I could get back up, dust myself off, and keep going despite every doubt. Some days, the loneliness was suffocating. The quiet stretches of land, the endless sky above. It all made me think about what I was really doing here. Friends back home were living easy lives while I was battling blisters and bruises. But with every aching muscle, I reminded myself why I came. To prove that hard work and heart could break through any barrier. The ranch wasn't just a place. It was a test of who I really was. I also learned that respect came with time and effort, not with words. The Cowboys watched everything, every move, every slip-up, every small success. I had to earn their trust, not by talking, but by doing. Day by day, I chipped away at the walls of doubt, showing that I wasn't just passing through. I was here to stay, and I was ready to prove it in every grueling hour under the sun. By the end of that first month, something shifted inside me. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was becoming part of the land and the life. The exhaustion was still there, but so was a growing sense of pride and belonging. I knew that if I could endure this, I could face whatever challenge came next. And little did I know, the wildest challenge was just around the corner. From the moment I set foot on the ranch, the Cowboys made their opinions loud and clear. Their jokes weren't just light teasing. They were full of skepticism, sometimes cutting so deep I wondered if I'd ever earn their respect. City boy, they'd call me, as if that label defined everything I was and could ever be. It was a constant reminder that I was the outsider, the easy target for their doubts and sarcasm. The group pressure was real. In tight-knit communities like this, everyone watches everyone else, waiting for someone to slip. My every move was under a microscope, and the smallest mistake became fuel for their gossip and jokes. It felt like an uphill battle to prove I wasn't just some joke or passing fad. They tested me, pushing boundaries, trying to see if I'd crack under the weight of their expectations. I won't lie, there were moments when their words hit hard. The snide remarks and sideways glances made me question if I belonged at all. But I quickly learned that feeling alone was part of the process, and that true strength comes from rising despite the noise around you. Their disdain became my motivation. Every joke was a challenge, every doubter a reason to fight harder. The thing about Cowboys is they respect toughness, but not just physical strength. Mental toughness counts even more. They wanted to see if I could stand tall when everyone was against me. I knew winning them over wouldn't happen overnight, and it wouldn't come from arguments or explanations. It had to be earned through actions, through sweat, resilience, and grit that no joke could shake. Sometimes I caught glimpses of respect in their eyes, brief moments when they'd nod silently or step back to let me do my work. Those small signs were like gold, fueling my fire to push forward. I realized that earning respect wasn't about winning popularity contests. It was about proving I belonged through consistent effort no matter how long it took. The pressure wasn't just external. It was internal too. I had to silence my own doubts and insecurities, pushing myself beyond limits I never knew existed. Every laugh at my expense was a call to prove them wrong, every whisper a reason to stand taller. I wasn't just fighting their judgments, I was fighting my own fears. Looking back, that pressure shaped me more than anything else. It forced me to grow, to become tougher, and to hold on to my purpose. The disdain of the Cowboys wasn't a barrier. It was the fire that forged me. And as the days went by, I started turning the jokes into respect, one hard-earned step at a time. I'd heard stories about the wild horse long before I ever saw it. They called him Thunder, a beast so fierce and untamable that no one on the ranch had ever caught him. The other cowboys spoke of him in hushed tones, like he was more legend than real. When I first laid eyes on Thunder, I understood why. His muscles rippled under a coat as dark as midnight, and his eyes burned with a fire that seemed to challenge the world itself. The moment I was told I'd have to catch Thunder, my heart pounded like never before. It wasn't just a test of skill. It was a test of will, grit, and every lesson I'd learned since day one. I knew this was the ultimate chance to prove myself, to silence the doubters once and for all. But the thought of facing a creature that no one else could tame sent a chill down my spine. I wasn't just up against a horse. I was up against a legend. Watching Thunder roam free across the fields was like watching a force of nature in motion. Every time I got close, he would kick up dirt, snort, and bolt away with lightning speed. The wildness in him mirrored the challenges I'd faced, fierce, relentless, and impossible to predict. Catching him would mean more than mastering a horse. It would mean mastering my own fears and doubts. Preparation became my obsession. I studied every move Thunder made, learning his patterns and weaknesses. I listened to advice from the older cowboys, absorbing their stories and wisdom like a sponge. Every early morning and late night was spent planning my approach, knowing that one wrong move could cost me everything. The weight of the challenge was heavy, but so was the promise of victory. The first attempt was a brutal lesson. Thunder threw me off with a powerful kick, and I hit the ground hard, pain radiating through my body. But I got back up, wiping blood from my face and promising myself I wouldn't quit. That moment taught me something crucial. Catching Thunder wouldn't be about brute force. It would require patience, respect, and a connection that went beyond fear and control. Days turned into weeks, and my determination only grew stronger. Every failed attempt was a step closer to understanding Thunder's spirit. I wasn't just trying to break him. I was learning how to earn his trust. Slowly, the wildness that once terrified me became a challenge I was ready to meet head-on. The bond was beginning to form, fragile but real. Looking back, meeting Thunder was the turning point in my journey. It wasn't just about catching a wild horse. It was about facing the wildness inside myself. The challenge pushed me to limits I never imagined, teaching me that sometimes the greatest battles are the ones we fight within. And as I prepared for the next ride, I knew this was my chance to prove who I really was. Every attempt to catch Thunder tested me in ways I never expected. The horse wasn't just wild, he was smart, unpredictable, and fearless. Each time I got close, he'd throw me off or sprint away faster than I could react. I fell more times than I can count, my body bruised and my spirit worn thin. But with every fall, I learned something new about him and about myself. There were moments when frustration threatened to consume me. I'd sit alone by the fence, muscles aching, wondering if I was chasing a dream too wild to catch. Doubt crept in like a shadow, whispering that maybe I wasn't cut out for this life after all. But beneath the doubt, a stubborn voice kept pushing me forward, reminding me that giving up was never an option. The struggle was brutal, but it forged a new kind of strength inside me. I learned patience like never before, understanding that force alone wouldn't win this battle. I had to become part of Thunder's world, reading his movements, matching his rhythm. It was a dance of respect and trust, and every small connection we made brought me closer to victory. Physical pain was constant. Bruises, scrapes, and exhaustion that felt like it would never end. But the mental battle was just as fierce. I had to fight my fears of failure, the sting of humiliation, and the loneliness that came with chasing something seemingly impossible. Every setback was a test of my resolve, and I refused to let those challenges define me. Some days, I felt like I was moving backward, losing ground in a fight I might never win. But then I'd catch a glimpse of progress, a moment when Thunder hesitated instead of bolting, a second when our eyes met, and something unspoken passed between us. Those moments were sparks of hope, lighting the way through the darkest days. I also realized I wasn't alone in this fight. The other cowboys, though still skeptical, started to watch more closely. Some offered quiet nods of approval, Others just gave me space to prove myself. Their shifting attitudes reminded me that respect was earned one day at a time, and that my perseverance was beginning to break down the walls of doubt. Looking back now, those struggles were the most important part of my journey. They taught me resilience, humility, and the power of never giving up. Each failure was a lesson, each bruise a badge of honor. And as I prepared for the next attempt, I knew I was no longer the same man who first set foot on the ranch. The day I finally caught thunder is one I'll never forget. It wasn't a sudden moment or a lucky break. It was the result of countless hours of struggle, patience, and learning. As I approached him that morning, the air was thick with tension. My heart raced, knowing this was the moment that could change everything. I wasn't just trying to catch a horse, I was fighting to prove who I really was. Thunder eyed me warily, muscles tense and ready to bolt. But something had shifted. Maybe it was the countless tries, or the silent understanding growing between us. I moved slowly, matching his breath and pace, speaking in a calm tone that carried no threat. The ranch was quiet, every eye watching from a distance. Time seemed to stretch as I reached out my hand. When my fingers finally touched his mane, a wave of relief and awe washed over me. Thunder didn't pull away. He stood still, accepting me in a way I hadn't imagined possible. That moment was more than just catching a wild horse. It was breaking through years of doubt and fear, both his and mine. The impossible had become reality, and I knew nothing would ever be the same. I climbed onto Thunder's back with a mixture of pride and respect. He wasn't just a horse anymore. He was a partner. The ride wasn't easy. Thunder tested me every step of the way, reminding me that trust had to be earned. But with every gallop, I felt a bond growing stronger, a connection born from struggle and patience. The other cowboys watched in stunned silence, their skepticism replaced by respect. Some nodded in approval, others simply stared, realizing that the kid they once doubted had done what no one else could. That day, I wasn't just Cole Barrett, the city kid. I was part of the ranch, a cowboy who earned his place through grit and heart. That victory taught me more than I ever expected. It showed me the power of persistence, the strength and vulnerability, and the magic that happens when you refuse to give up. Catching Thunder wasn't just about taming a horse. It was about taming the wildness inside myself. And in that moment, I became the man I was meant to be. Looking back, that day marked a new beginning. The doubts faded, the laughter stopped, and a new chapter opened, one filled with respect, belonging, and endless possibilities. But the journey was far from over, and I knew that every new challenge would demand the same courage and heart. Thunder and I were ready for whatever came next. After catching Thunder, everything changed. Not just how others saw me, but how I saw myself. The journey from being the outsider to earning my place wasn't easy, but it was worth every bruise, every doubt, and every sleepless night. I realized that respect on the ranch is about more than just skill. It's about heart, persistence, and showing up even when the odds are against you. The cowboys who once doubted me started to include me in their conversations, offering advice and sometimes even a nod of approval. I felt the weight of acceptance settle in, like a quiet but powerful acknowledgement that I belonged. That feeling was more valuable than any trophy or title. It was the sense of being part of a brotherhood forged through shared trials and trust. I also changed on the inside. The ranch had tested me in ways I never expected, but it had also taught me who I really was. I became stronger, humbler, and more connected to the land and people around me. Every sunrise was a reminder that growth is a daily choice, and every challenge was an opportunity to become better than I was the day before. The story of catching Thunder spread across the ranch and beyond. I wasn't just that city kid anymore. I became a symbol of what determination and heart could accomplish. People began to ask me for advice, to watch how I worked, and to respect the grit it took to get here. It was humbling and empowering all at once, but the journey didn't end with victory. Being part of the ranch meant continuing to prove myself every day, staying humble and pushing forward no matter the obstacles. I learned that true respect isn't permanent. It's earned repeatedly through actions, integrity, and resilience. And that's a lesson I carry with me always. Looking back, I'm proud of how far I've come. From a doubtful newcomer to someone who has earned his place among legends. But I also know this is just the beginning of a lifelong journey. The ranch is more than a job. It's a way of life that demands the best version of yourself every day. If there's one thing I want you to take away from my story, it's this. No matter where you start, no matter how many doubts you face, your grit and heart can take you places you never imagined. So if you're ready to chase your own wild horse, stay strong, stay patient, and never stop believing. This ride isn't over. It's just getting started. I want to thank you for sticking with me and following this journey so far. Your time and attention mean everything, and it's because of people like you that these stories come alive. If you're craving more moments of grit, heart, and real-life challenges, make sure to hit that subscribe button and leave a like. Together we'll keep exploring the rides that shape us, the wild horses we all have to catch, and the strength we find along the way. Stay ready. The next story could be just around the corner.